Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. I'm super excited for you to hear this interview. I'm talking with Nikki. Nicolette, you like Nikki, right?
Yeah, I usually go by Nikki.
Okay, Nikki is a dietitian as well, and we have a really juicy combo all about things between like gut health and emotional eating and mindful eating and your relationship with food. And it's just really awesome because you're going to learn, I'm sure, that everything is so tightly like together, meaning like they all affect one another and we need to be looking at the whole picture. So I'm really excited for Nikki to share her wealth of knowledge with us. She is going to kindly introduce herself, but I will say she's been a dietitian for 10 years. So we need to listen to the nutrition expert here because I definitely think time and experience really helps to shape someone's viewpoints, and I'm super excited to hear from her. So Nikki, thanks so much for being here. Welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast.
Thank you so much, Tony. I am so excited to be here. So like you said, my name is Nikki, Nicolette. My last name is Fraza. I have been a dietitian for about 10 years. I have worked in a combination like you of inpatient, private practices. So I still work inpatient at a small community hospital part-time. And then I also started my own business about a year ago. And I started it virtual, which has been convenient because I haven't had to change the structure of it all. But the focus is healing women's gut health and then also their relationship with food. Because like you said, I feel like it all is interwoven and goes hand in hand. So I live in Rhode Island. I have 2 little girls and a dog and my husband.
The husband, yeah, and the husband.
He's here too. Yeah, so that's pretty much my little bio.
Awesome. Well, before we get more into like the questions and stuff that I have for you, I'd love to just learn maybe why you decided to become an RD and also why you've now chosen to specialize in gut health. I think it's a really unique specialty and I believe that it is necessary today. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are, like what made you decide to do that?
So I have been a vegetarian actually since I was 5. Obviously at that point it was not health reasons. I just have I've always had a love for animals. And there was like a traumatic experience of going to a petting zoo and then it was Easter and we were having lamb. An aunt explained to me that it could have been the one I saw at the farm.
Oh my God, what a mean, terrible.
It is, but like, there's like an ounce of truth there, like,
I know.
So I dove deeper into that kind of, and my parents were super supportive. My mom was especially like always very health conscious. So as I got like a little bit older, it was something that we researched together, like how can we make complete meals and like what could I be missing? And so I really at a young age got into like cooking and nutrition. I like used to get so excited when my vegetarian times came in the mail and we would pick out recipes and stuff. So that was how I really got into like nutrition and diet. But I actually initially went to school for mass communications at USF, and I was like in my second year there, and all of a sudden I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I went to see the guidance counselor, and she was like, you just need to go home and do some soul searching. So I went back to like nutrition. I was like, why didn't I do this in the first place? So I transferred back to URI, and I finished up there. And then I did my master's, my internship, all through URI. But I just find it amazing how nutrition can affect people. So getting into gut health, about 10 years ago, I was told that I had IBS, which I think sometimes can just be like, we don't really know what's wrong with you. So we're going to have IBS. And so I did like the low FODMAP diet and the elimination diet. And it was like, I was just cutting out all these foods and I didn't feel better. And so that's when I really started to look at myself as a whole. So like I had really high stress levels and I was not managing that well. And like my diet was okay, but like as a vegetarian, I did rely more on like some of the processed meat products and stuff like that. So I just kind of started to look at everything. And I feel amazing now. I feel like, I guess, like healed, you could say. I mean, there are always like going to be like bumps in the road, but part of it was that why I wanted to go into it, because I feel like I have helped myself and like I want to use that knowledge to help other people. I also, my mom, so my mom was like super health focused, like I said, but she had cancer for most of my life, like off and on. And she was always like, she owned her own business, and she would be bringing in like, she juiced mushrooms and grew her own wheatgrass. And she was like, if there was anything that could help her feel better, she was like on it. Like she was so open to just trying different things. But she also had like, she went to photo school. She was a photographer. She owned her own business. So she was around some like really nasty chemicals most of her life. She also had like insane stress. I think that was one of the most detrimental things to her, was her stress levels. But she also had, significant like gut issues. She had C. diff multiple times. It was a tough way to live. But I do think that through all of this, she really did focus on nutrition. And like, she always made smoothies, and like we researched a lot together. And I do think that helped her improve her quality of life. And also just like, she surpassed how long they thought that she would live. She passed away almost 2 years ago now.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. But she did live longer than they thought. And then one more thing about that, because I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, this is good. This is good.
Okay. And then part of it was too that they looked at her in like pieces. So because she had so many different things wrong with her, she had like 8 different doctors, and it was like, they didn't really look at her as a whole person. It was like she had a neurologist and an oncologist and a GI doctor. And they didn't really consider that like everything was intertwined. And looking back on it now, like I do think a lot, as she got worse, I think a lot was related to her gut. And like, it was just, it was just so terrible, like the state of her gut at that point. And like, but like not once did anybody talk about that. So that's where I started to really research how, like, the laundry list of things that are affected by gut health. And I just think it's amazing. And I think it's like a powerful tool to like just improve your health in general.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm really just sorry to hear about your mom. It's never easy to lose a loved one. It sounds though that you made the best out of the life that she did have, and you provided some helpful tips for her and improved her quality of life, which is really great. And I love that now you're using that plus your own story to just help and heal others. So that's really powerful. You're like allowing her memory to continue through what you're doing, which is super special.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear from you, of all of those laundry lists of things that affect gut health, what would you say are like the top 3 things that we need to be paying attention to, that maybe we can be more in charge of, or feel empowered to actually make some kind of a difference or change?
So like, do you mean like things that could be affected from gut health, or what we could do?
Well, I guess kind of both. I feel like, what are the things that affect our gut health, and then what can we do to improve it?
So definitely, I do think that diet can be really important. And I do think that is individualized to different people. I think that there's a lot of evidence, obviously, that like fiber is super important. So, and fiber is only found in plant foods. So making sure that you have an abundance of plant foods. And there was the largest study to date on the gut, called the American Gut Project. They found that the greatest predictor of gut health is the diversity of plants that you eat. So greater than like 30 different types of plants a week, which sounds like a lot, but honestly, like it's not.
No, I think that I read that study, and I think that me too, when I was like, wait, let me just make sure, what are they counting as plants? And it can be grains and nuts and seeds, and it's not necessarily like 30 vegetables. It could be fruit. It could be, yeah. So I was like, I remember reading that too, and I was like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. And then once you start counting, you're like, okay, this is actually doable. And I feel like it really helps me to use up stuff in the fridge, because I'll be like, what else can I throw on top of this? Like some cilantro, and like throw everything in there. And so the idea behind that is like that there's so many different types of fiber present in all these different types of plants. And so it's going to feed different bacteria and help them thrive. So by eating a bunch of just fiber-rich plants and diversify them as much as possible. So diet would be one. And then
I just want to pause you there before we go to number 2. Because you did mention earlier that having IBS and, you know, doing low FODMAP and the elimination diet. I had SIBO last year, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It was horrible. And I was instructed, I ended up taking there's this, like, I don't want to go on a tangent. I ended up taking like a natural sort of antibiotic regimen, and it healed it. And but I was also obviously advised to follow like a low FODMAP diet. And like, I'm an RD, I know this stuff. It was no. Like I was just like, okay, so basically I could eat steamed chicken and white rice, and let's like just hope that, you know, that's all. Like, it's just not, I understand it's like you need to do it to heal, but it's just like not sustainable, and it's not supposed to be sustainable. But that could also get completely, like, if someone doesn't explain that to you properly, like, we're RDs, we get it, right? But just their everyday person, if they're told to follow a low FODMAP diet without the true explanation behind it, it doesn't sound much different than following a keto diet or than following like this fad diet. Like, it really is not much different. Anyways, all that to say, when you talk about the importance of fiber, what happens when someone's extremely bloated or has, you know, IBS-D, so more on the diarrhea sort of end? Like, what does someone do in that situation if they don't want to go to the extreme, but maybe they might have to, but of doing like an elimination or low FODMAP diet? What would you suggest in those situations?
So first, we always look at lifestyle factors first before I ever like take out foods, or so looking at like stress and how you eat. So like if somebody's eating in a stress state, or if they eat super fast, if they're eating in the car, don't chew their food. So looking at those kinds of things first, and addressing like any kind of lifestyle factors that could be contributing to what is going on in their gut, because we know that gut-brain axis, like everything is so closely tied. So if you're stressed, it could be affecting your gut. So looking at that first, and then working, if you are trying to increase fiber, I always will start people with cooked vegetables and soups and stews. So the fiber is still there, but the cellulose is broken down, so it's going to be easier to digest. So just lightly steaming or stir frying, cooking your veggies, and really just starting out really slow. So a lot of times people will feel like they have to bump it up to that goal of 30 grams a day or whatever we have in mind. But if you go from I think the average for most Americans is between 8 and 12 grams of fiber a day, something like that. If you go from there to 30 grams in a couple of days, you're going to feel obviously a lot worse, a lot more bloating and constipation. So starting just super slow and listening to your body, and just I like to go into detail with my clients and really look at their meals and slowly figure out where could we increase this a little bit, and then we'll keep it there for a week or 2 weeks, and then kind of slowly increase it a little bit more. So the whole theory of your gut is like a muscle, even though it's not a muscle, but it's like a muscle in that you have to kind of work it out and give it a chance to build up to that. So slowly.
That's a great tip. And so I also think that it's important to talk about. So, okay, so if you're someone who averages around 10 grams of fiber and you want to slowly work your way up to about 25 to 30 grams, depending on if you're male or female, and obviously stuff like that, that's great. Now, what is it possible to have too much fiber? And what would be the signs or symptoms for that?
So I do think I think that the amount is going to be individualized to you. So it really is like tuning in. So we focus a lot, like I always focus on this too, with like listening to your body and like the cues that it's telling you. Like we're so out of tune with just like when we're hungry, when we're full, like how foods make us feel. A lot of times people don't even know like how often they poop, like they don't remember, or they don't look at it. And so like,
or they're okay with going like every 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you really can tell me that you're not bloated and you feel okay with that, like, good for you. And hopefully that's an improvement for you, but I'm sorry. I cannot imagine, like, I know people who struggle with that and they're like, yeah, I haven't gone to the bathroom in 2 days. I'm like, my stomach would be out to the universe. I would be like such a brat. Like, everything would bother me.
I know. I just feel like because it's always been like that, somehow they're like, this is normal for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so taking a look at, obviously, like if you start to have increased bloating or sometimes like diarrhea, if you have the IBS-D, it could cause more diarrhea,
right.
Constipation. So really looking at the GI symptoms and like feeling like what feels good for you. So sometimes it could be keeping a food journal, but not in a way of like counting calories or anything like that, but more so like just keeping track of the foods you're eating, how they make you feel. Sometimes I'll have clients like assess their stress levels or like their emotional state when they eat, because we know that can affect it. And then keeping track of like how often they are having bowel movements, and writing that down can be super helpful too. So kind of looking at everything. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Sorry. I totally took you off tangent. So first thing we need to look at that affects the gut and things you can do about it is modifying your diet. So keep a food journal, pay attention to how food makes you feel. Notice how often you're having bowel movements. If feel like your bowel movements are irregular of some kind, slowly work on increasing fiber. Well, side note, also increase your water while you do that. Otherwise it will be really uncomfortable. And then kind of work your way and then see where your upper limit is.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yep. Okay. What's number 2?
2, I think, would be looking at your stress levels. So stress, like I have mentioned, is so closely tied with what's going on in your gut. So it kind of works both ways. So your stress levels can affect your gut. And then also just like if you have more of the bad bacteria or like dysbiosis, it could also cause more stress or anxiety, affect your mood more. So it's kind of this cycle up between the gut and the brain. So really supporting your gut, but also managing your stress. So I don't think it's necessarily so we're all under a lot of stress, and sometimes you can't get rid of that, or you can't take away all of the stress, and we don't want to. Some stress is good, but it's more so in the way that you're like managing it. The way, like if you do yoga or journal, go for walks, like whatever makes you decompress a little bit and be able to just focus on how you feel. A lot of times people don't even know when they're stressed either.
No, it really is crazy. And I'm guilty of that. Like just recently, I think your episode's coming out next week already, because I was like totally didn't do a good job backing him up. So, but if people listen to Monday's episodes, if you're listening to this now and you listen to Monday's episode, then you're going to listen about how I took this break from social media. And what I've been paying attention to is I'm significantly less stressed, but to be honest, I didn't even know I was stressed. Like I really didn't think I was stressed. I have all those things in place, like yoga, meditation, and going for walks, and even being present with my food and all these things. But my body my mind might not be stressed, but my body just holds stress. Like I could go for a massage and feel like I need another massage. Like my shoulders are always clenched up and they need to be reminded to like push them back. I could, when I like listen to meditations and they're like, okay, unclench your jaw. I like I can't believe how often I'm like actually clenching my jaw. Like, so I think that that's all to say that even if you don't think you're stressed, stress builds up just by being a human. Like you have responsibilities, like you are an adult, like, and then even if you're not doing your responsibilities, that stresses us out too. So it's like like you said, you can't really escape it. It's just, there are things you can put in place to better manage it and to be aware of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's super helpful.
Before meals, I always recommend doing a few like deep breaths. So I like to do the 4, 7, 8. So you inhale for 4, hold it for 7, exhale for 8. And I like that particularly because you have to kind of pay attention to the numbers because they're not the same. Like I know some people do the box method of 4, 4, 4. But I kind of like having it different in that, like, when you're thinking of these numbers, your mind is less likely to wander and it kind of brings you back to like what you're doing. So even just doing a couple of deep breaths, like before meals, or like sometimes if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll do those kinds of deep breathing. And it just helps me to like stay more present and not escape into like wherever my mind may take me.
Yeah, I think that's a really great tip. So other than taking some deep breaths before you sit down to eat, what are other ways related to food maybe that someone can help manage their stress? So maybe around times of eating or cooking or whatever, like food related stuff, because I think most people probably heard me talk about meditation and journaling and exercise and sleep. Like I feel like I talk about that all the time. So let's talk more specifically, like, okay, so eating, sitting down to eat and taking some deep breaths before you eat. What are some other like mindful eating techniques that you have your clients implement?
Yeah, so this is a really big one. And I feel like actually the mindful eating is one of the biggest takeaways that my clients get. They see the most benefit from it. So really sitting down as much as possible at a table without distraction. So this feels really weird at first for people to not have like their phone or their computer. So many of my clients work in front of or eat in front of their computer while they're working. And it's like there's no way that you are actually listening to your body if you're doing like a million other things or like eating in the car. So really just trying to sit down uninterrupted. And I recommend just like, if you don't do that at all, starting with like one meal, like just sit down for dinner or breakfast, like wherever it fits into your day. So sitting down, and in the beginning, I have clients use like the hunger scale. So rating their hunger and fullness on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 would be like so famished, like you feel weak or ill. And then 10 would be so full that you also feel ill, but like in a different way, like after Thanksgiving or something like that feeling of just so full. And so generally you want to stay between like 3 or 4 or 7 and an 8. And just even in the beginning, figuring out what that is for you, because I think that we are so detached from hunger and fullness. Like from a young age, I think that we are told when to eat, and a lot of parents tell their kids to like finish their plate even if they're not hungry, or like you have to eat all your vegetables so you can get that really delicious treat. And I think in some schools now, like lunch is like 15 minutes long and it's at like 10:45, and it's like it doesn't really make sense. So really just getting back in tune with like what that feels for you.
Yeah.
And that can be like tough, and it takes practice. And I think it's just being curious about it without judgment. So just like maybe one day or one meal you eat past the point of feeling comfortable, and that's okay. Like now you're kind of like figuring out where that is in your body so that like you can reassess next time. So anyway, so using the hunger and fullness.
No, that was good though. I think that like, because most people eat past the point of fullness and are like, screw it, I'm so mad at myself, let me just keep doing this, I'll start over tomorrow. And then they restrict significantly, and that's how they stay stuck in the cycle. Right? Sure. But what you're saying is like, it's okay. We eat past fullness sometimes. It's going to happen, but pay attention. when did this happen? How much food? What was the volume of the food or the food choice? What was the situation? Was I distracted? Was I not sitting and being present? Like, what was going on here so I can learn from that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of times it's just detaching, like, so many people have like their self-worth tied into their food choices, and detaching from that, like your food choices don't define your worth. Like, you're not good or bad regardless. Like, if you eat too much, that doesn't make you bad. You shouldn't have feelings of guilt. It's just like, this happens. You're still the person. You are who you are regardless of like these decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
You're still a good mom. You're still a good mom. Doesn't matter if you ate spaghetti or not. Still a good mom. But people really have a hard time hearing that or even understanding that. Like,
yeah.
So, anyways.
So back to the mindful eating. So using the hunger scale, really chewing. So chewing is going to be so important for digestion, for satiety, for getting back in tune with your hunger and fullness. So ideally, you want to chew until your food is like applesauce or like baby food consistency. So it can feel like a lot in the beginning. So a lot of times people will chew like 2 or 3 bites and swallow it down. And it's just like you put more food in your mouth when you still have food in there. So really, like, this is just practice. You just have to keep doing it. So like paying attention, sometimes I'll have clients like make little things as reminders. So maybe it's like a sticky note on their lunch, like chew your food, or like just little things to help them remember and be more present about it. And again, it's just trying, practice. There's perfect.
Yeah. And also just creating the space to eat lunch. Like you were saying, like some schools, they only give you 15 minutes. Like by the time you actually prepare your food, heat it up, sit down with it, that's 5-10 minutes just to get it together, right? So create that space where, and maybe try to make it last. Like, I'm guilty of this too. I eat in 5 minutes and I'm done, but like I'm working on it, and it's trying to intentionally make it last longer.
Right. Absolutely.
Like, even with just that intention, then yes, you'll chew more your food more, or you'll just like take your time. But without that intention, or even without creating the space, like then you just can't do it.
For sure. Yeah. And like, because you want to be present with it so that you can actually like taste it and smell it and like, what's the texture like? A lot of times, dissatisfaction from your meal is probably because like you didn't really taste it. Like you didn't really take the time to acknowledge what you were eating.
Yeah. So
and like,
true.
do you even like it? Like sometimes it's like, why am I eating this? Like you have to like check in with yourself. Totally. So kind of asking yourself all those questions throughout the meal. And they do become, the more you practice them, they do become more like second nature, so that it's not like you have to keep a list next to every meal of things that you should be doing. But like the checking in with yourself, slowing down, it does become easier the more you keep doing it. But like in the beginning, it really is, it's practice. It's like another thing you just have to like work on and get better at.
Yeah. I mean, it's a habit, right? But it's definitely something that, it takes some intention setting, similar to like exercise. At first, if you're new to exercise, you have to set the time aside. You have to be intentional about it. Like, it stinks in the beginning. It's like really hard. It's rough. Like, you're sore. Like, it's just a challenge. But eventually you start doing it. You start loving it. You start realizing the benefits, and it starts to feel really good. And then it just becomes like, this is what I do. I work out 3 to 4 times a week, and it's what feels good to me. It's like, that's like any habit. So same thing with mindful eating. It's not, you're not doing it temporarily. You want to try to implement this. And that's why starting, I think, with one meal is most realistic for people, and then build their way up from there.
Totally.
These are such great tips. What about the third thing that affects gut health? So we talked about your diet, stress. I do have a question, so I'm wondering what you're going to say about gut health. I was going to say like probiotics, but I'm wondering is that what you were going to say? Because I feel like that is just like a loaded topic and we could go on for like hours about that. So I'm just curious.
It wasn't going to be about I actually, for a lot of my clients, I don't recommend probiotic supplements. We work on, we include a lot of like fermented foods. Even just, so how into it do you want me to get with probiotics? A little bit, or?
I mean, just go. I'll let you know if we are running out of time, but I think we're good on time. So go for it.
I won't talk too much about it. So the thing with probiotics is that they don't colonize in your gut. So you eat them or take a supplement and they are helpful while they're there. But like if you stop taking them, that good live bacteria is not going to stay present in your gut. So the other thing is that there are so many different strains, and I do think that there is science behind using certain ones for specific conditions, but like there are a lot of people that take them just for like thinking they are boosting their gut health or just like for regular maintenance. I don't think that there's much evidence behind that, and they can be expensive. And I think sometimes if you don't get the strain that works for you, they can actually make you feel worse. So like more bloated. And then it's like you have to decide at that point, do you buy a different one, like try a different one? So I do use them for individual cases, but for the most part, we work on getting like fermented foods. So like sauerkraut, miso, tempeh, but tempeh is like once you cook it, it does kill most of the live bacteria, which is with any of the fermented foods. But yogurt, if you can do dairy, like small amounts of low sugar yogurt or a vegan yogurt, like a coconut yogurt that has the live bacteria in it. So we try to use those, and the key is to have small amounts of them every day so that you are constantly replenishing that the good bacteria in your gut. And then for supplements, I actually recommend prebiotics for most of my clients. So there is a lot of science showing that, so the prebiotics are the food or that type of fiber that actually feed the live bacteria in your gut. So you get it from food, but there is a lot of evidence showing that a supplement can help to really create like a diverse and robust gut bacteria, like microbiome. So there are a few. My favorite right now is called sun fiber. It's a partially hydrolyzed guar gum. So sun fiber is a much more appealing name for it. But what I like is it dissolves completely in water and it doesn't really taste like anything. And then there's also acacia fiber, which I take sometimes too, and that one dissolves well. And then something like psyllium husk. So I think focusing with anything, I always focus on food first, but I do think that this is something that can be really helpful for most people.
Awesome. That was really great. Thank you for explaining that. So what was the third thing you were going to say that impacts gut health and something you can do?
Tough one, honestly. Like the two biggest ones I think are going to be diet and stress. I do think that movement is going to be really important as well. So finding like something that is joyful for you. So it doesn't have to be something like super intense, some kickboxing class that you like hate going to, but they say is really great. Finding like going for walks, like even after meals can be really helpful to improve like bloating and digestion. But just there are studies showing too that exercise does help improve the good bacteria in your gut microbiome as well. So it can help for that. It just helps with obviously like endorphins and mental health and like as a stress relief as well. So I think it's just finding what is sustainable and like enjoyable for you. But I think movement would be the third one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. That's great. Okay. So switching gears a little bit. One thing that you've talked about before when we were offline was something that you feel a lot of weight loss experts should know more about. And I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are when it comes to gut health and striving for weight loss, and that like how do they work together? Can they work together? Can you lose weight and have a healthy gut? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because you just talked about a variety in your diet, right? Not a lot of stress, and sometimes being in a caloric deficit or like high intensity training might be more stressful than helpful. So I'm curious where your stance is when it comes to weight loss and gut health.
Yeah. So first of all, I always emphasize that like your weight is not an indicator of your health. So we talk a lot about that in my course, and just like, I don't have anybody weigh themselves. We focus on, so first we always establish like their why. Like, so why do they want to lose weight? Why are they doing this? Like, what are these underneath goals that are more sustainable? Because losing 5 pounds or 10 pounds is not going to make you feel like fulfilled or complete as a person. Like you may get there, and then it's like, what happens now? If you're not happy with who you were before, like losing the extra 5 to 10 pounds is not going to bring you that joy either. So figuring out the why. And a lot of times, like, it could be something like they want to be able to have enough energy to run with their kids, or like go up 3 flights of stairs and not feel winded, or maybe just like be able to live like a long, healthy life as much as is in their control. So like focusing more so on those like bigger whys that will drive them to make behavior changes. And then we focus on the behavior changes and not the outcome of weight loss. So like adding in more plants and aiming to make like half of your plate vegetables, that in itself is like a natural crowding out. So it's not focusing on restricting or cutting anything out. It's more so just focusing on like what we're adding in and the abundance of like really nutrient dense foods that make them feel good. And then if you choose to have like pasta and something like, pasta with it, or a donut, like whatever, it's like you're still filling up on this super nutrient dense, and fiber is like really filling. It sits in your belly for a really long time, in that it makes you feel satisfied for a while. So focusing on like what we are adding in instead of what we're cutting out. And then it goes back to the mindful eating, because that really helps you to feel satisfied with less. And that's not always the goal, isn't to eat less. It's more so just to feel, you want to feel satisfied. I mean, nobody really likes that feeling of like overeating and being uncomfortable. So more so tuning in with yourself and being like, okay, like this was enough for me. And I'm okay with stopping now.
Right.
So
right.
kind of like tuning back in too.
Okay. So you're saying if you go that route and then your body loses weight, that's a little healthier way than intentionally like ignoring your hunger cues and trying to go the extreme route to weight loss. Chances are then that will damage your gut and your health in total more so. And I love what you said about like learning the why behind the why, because that's usually where the behavior changes and that's more sustainable. And yeah, then you are able to separate your worth from your weight and the number on the scale, which is really important to do. Because if you don't, you'll just always stay stuck to a freaking like an electronic number. Like just like it's so frustrating. Like there's just so much more to life, and we have to really just disconnect from that and really just embrace just like living a healthier, happier life, and doing that regardless of what the number on the scale says.
Mm-hmm. I was listening to a podcast recently with a doctor that I like, Dr. Reviva Ram, and she said, imagine what women would be able to do with that time that they've wasted thinking about how they're going to lose the last 5 to 10 pounds.
Whew, that's right? Powerful. I think I need to quote that for my book. What is her name? Literally, that's going in. So I think I just changed all my chapters around. So I think it was chapter 4, will now be chapter 5. But what's her name?
Dr. Reviva Ram.
Dr. Reviva Ram. And you know what? I mean, I feel like that's not like I feel like we've all kind of said that, but it's so true. But I'm gonna have to like reach out to her and actually quote her. But it's so true. I mean, so much money, time, energy is wasted in trying to be smaller. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, women, and honestly, that's diet culture at the whole, if we don't want to go into the depths of it, but like, that's why this stuff was put out. It was to keep women, if you want to know the real definition of diet culture, it's to keep us suppressed and from being, we are powerful, empowering creatures. And it's purposely, the propaganda has been put in our face to make us feel less than, and that we need to change ourselves before we can go and do what we want to do, which is BS. So sorry, end rant.
I think too, what is important is to like acknowledge like the dangers of social media at this time. And like, there are a lot of like wellness influencers that really like,
they're called Abfluencers, by the way. It's a real term, Abfluencers. People who have abs that like actually don't know anything about nutrition, and because they have abs, they're somehow, and they have a ton of followers, now they're somehow credible to give out the advice, and people listen to them because that society portrays, you have the body, so therefore you must know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So keep talking. We're still recording. We're not editing this. My battery on my laptop is about to die, so keep going. I hear you.
So I think it's also like looking at your sources, and it's tough as women. We're like constantly bombarded with like other people telling us what is right for our body. And like I have seen like diets where like if you want like to have the best gut health, you have to drink celery juice every day.
Oh, why did we not talk about this sooner? Celery juice. What are other ones? What are other things that claim to like heal your gut like magically?
Well, so like the whole collagen debate, so there's not a lot of like science behind taking collagen for gut health.
I never heard about it for healing your gut. I support collagen for just like joint stuff if you're not eating enough protein, like, obviously protein first, but like if you're doing high intensity training, like it may be beneficial, but not for, I never heard about it for being beneficial for gut health. Just
some people will do collagen or like beef gelatin, the like,
for
gut health. But there's not really much science behind it. I mean,
actually, now that I'm thinking about it, like beef, like broth. Oh my God.
Yeah, the bone broth.
Bone broth. There we go. Yeah. I have heard about people making claims about that as well.
And I'm all about like, if you do it and it feels good for you, then like, cool. I'm not here to tell you like that's not working for you. Like if it makes you feel better, then keep doing it.
Right.
Not harmful, but like to make scientific claims that like it will heal your gut, I don't think that is there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some other ones. I mean, so I do get into like, I'm okay with like trying different things. So like I've had clients try like aloe vera or like,
I've heard that one too. Yeah.
And so if they want to, I mean, on a lot of these things, I don't think that the science is there, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't work.
Right. And also it also doesn't mean you disregard changing your diet, what you eat every single day, and your stress levels, which are impacting you every single day, like what you've identified are like the main culprits of the things that we need to pay attention to. Like, so whether it works or not, I just thought of another one, apple cider vinegar. We still, like, you can put it in, but it's not the miracle. Like, you got to still pay attention to all those other areas. So they may help, but they're not going to be the end all be all.
Exactly. Yeah. The biggest ones, like you said, stress, diet, like we'll work on that stuff. And then if there's still like something off, like maybe we can tweak like supplements or go looking into specific foods. So we do in my course, we do a modified elimination diet. It's just like a 2 to 4 week period. And we cut out gluten, dairy, or they avoid it. They don't have to cut it out completely, but like avoid gluten, dairy, alcohol, added sugars, artificial sweeteners. And we focus mostly on just like whole foods. So we work on, like before this, we work on meal planning and meal prepping, and they get all these tools so that like going into this, it's not difficult. It's really just focusing on like getting back to like simple nutrition. And then the goal of it is to have the least restrictive diet that makes them feel good. So really, I just call it an experiment, and 2 to 4 weeks is not a long time. And it's just about we take things out for a little bit and then we retest them and like see how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is part of being able, especially if you have like gut health issues, that is part of being able to feel like empowered about your food decisions. So if that's, you know how different foods make you feel, and like you're an adult, you can make these decisions. So like if you know mac and cheese doesn't make you feel great, but like you really want it, then you can say like, I'm going to have it, and like maybe I'll be bloated later, but like maybe not. And like this is,
and I'm not going to have all of it. I'm going to have a portion of it that I feel like I could maybe, hopefully, let's cross our fingers and get away with this. Yeah.
So it's just knowing how things make you feel.
Yeah. And I want to just be clear, because this is what I think is one of my bigger pet peeves is I support taking things and testing things and all of that stuff. But I need you to do it under the care of a dietitian. Like for anybody that's listening, like I want you to share more about your course, and you have a group support and like all that stuff, because especially when you have gut problems, like it's so frustrating to live with that. So just take the time to work with a nutrition professional for 6 weeks or whatever, however long it is, just to get to know your body better. And make sure, most people, this is what I find so frustrating, most people will do the elimination part and they never do the reentry part in like a slow way. It's just it's like all or nothing. So now we have an elimination diet that's like now becoming another fad diet. Mm-hmm. And it's because you're not doing it correctly under the right care. Right. And you really need to be working with the right professional to do that. And totally. Like, and also too, because you mentioned it, and I think this is worth talking about. I mean, I'm curious what your thoughts are. I know I personally work with a lot of people who come to me. I work more with a more emotional eating sort of clientele, but you know, with that, there's gut issues as well. Mm-hmm. And I personally have gluten sensitivity. I had SIBO, so it's just a lot of the knowledge and research I've done and all that, and helping others help other things, but their stomach as well, like their gut as well. Some of them can tolerate gluten and some of them can't. Some can tolerate dairy and others can't. Some can do both, others can't. So that's another thing that I think we have to recognize, is that like gluten, first of all, especially if you don't have like celiac disease or like gut issues, like there's nothing wrong with eating gluten, and you can still have gut issues and still be okay with eating gluten, right? Yeah. So I do want you to just talk briefly about, I feel like gluten, dairy, and soy are those things that come up as things that people should avoid with gut health, and then soy just in general, which is, I think we could also go on another tangent about. But I am curious kind of what your thoughts are there with those.
Yeah, so I think that it can be difficult for people that do have gut health issues, because they become afraid of food and like there's a lot of fear behind it. But I don't think it's all or nothing. I think a lot of times what I see is like, once we address all the lifestyle factors, increasing fiber, increasing water, maybe adding in a prebiotic supplement, you're strengthening your gut so that like maybe you can tolerate foods that you couldn't tolerate before, or like we can do small amounts. So sometimes it's just like figuring out what is that tipping point for you. So like, I don't like to demonize anything. Like I said, I am vegetarian. I don't really eat dairy for a multitude of reasons. I'll have it here and there if I want it, and I don't feel like bad about that. But I think like I said before, I think it's more about what you're focusing on and what the abundance of your diet is. So like if you find out that lactose or dairy does bother you, then like, I would say you're probably going to choose not to eat it that often, but like that's still your choice. The only time is like if you have celiac, you can't do gluten, obviously. Yeah, right. But with the other ones, I think it is just working on your lifestyle factors, and then just testing the foods and kind of like seeing if I have gluten twice a day or like this amount of it, how does that make me feel? And trying it several different times, because I actually had a client who there was one night and she had, her favorite meal was like pasta. It was like a chickpea pasta with these vegan sausages and like, I think it was like peppers and onions, a bunch of veggies. And so she texted me the next morning and was like, I ate it. I felt terrible. Like, I'm so sad. Like, it's my favorite meal. I was so bloated afterwards. And I was like, all right, let's try it again. Like, pay attention to like how you're eating it, blah, blah, blah. So she like that night sat down, like practiced the mindful eating, and she felt fine. And she like looked back, and when she ate it the first time, she was on her way to work, like in the car, ate it really fast, didn't chew that well, was already stressed out.
Yeah.
And so like just looking at those two different things, and like the how you eat is like sometimes more important than like the what you eat too.
Oh my God, yes. Like 100%, 100%. This has been like such a great episode. I'm so excited for people to hear this. I want to be mindful of your time. So before you talk about your course and your group and like what you have to support people in their process, is there any other topics or comments or things you wanted to discuss today?
Nothing that I can think of. I don't think I addressed soy, but like soy, I feel like soy is the only one that, so I feel like soy is okay. I do non-GMO, like organic soy. And a lot of the like thoughts of it mimicking estrogen have been like not shown to be true. And like, it does not increase your risk of breast cancer. If anything, like populations that eat a lot of like the non-GMO soy products have lower incidences. I think where it gets a little tricky is more of like the mock meat stuff. So like the super processed fake meat. So I think that like occasionally those are okay, but like anything else that is super processed, it has a lot of additives and it's not going to be great for you. But
Right.
I think soy in small amounts is totally fine.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right. So where can people find you if they wanted to work with you, get in touch with you, just follow along?
So I am on Instagram. That is like the easiest place to get a hold of me. My handle is Nicolette Fraza _nutrition. You can DM me there, or I'm pretty much always on there. I'm trying to limit it, like you said, do my time on Instagram. But and then I also have a website, nicolettefraza.com.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much. This is a great conversation. I know a lot of people are going to get a lot of value out of this. Those of you who are listening, definitely take a screenshot of this episode, share it on your story, tag me and tag Nicolette. Let us know what changes you're going to make in your life. Hopefully it's less stress or better stress management techniques, or simply just adding a little bit more plants to your meal, making half your plate veggies, like she said. It's really, really great for your gut health. I actually am so sorry. I just had another question. Like I did I meant to ask it earlier. Sorry, it's like the longest episode, but it's so good. So I get this question a lot, and I just want you to share your thoughts. So I'll recommend ways to increase dietary fiber through foods, and I always get asked, can I take a fiber supplement? What are your thoughts?
So I think that something like psyllium technically is like a fiber supplement. I think small amounts of psyllium can be helpful, but I am always like for food. So I think a lot of, even when it comes to like supplements, I think so much of what is special about the whether it's like fiber or vitamin is like the synergisticness of the food. So like when you eat, let's say, an apple, like there's a lot of fiber in it, but there's also like vitamin C and this, like all the antioxidants. So I think that if you wanted to take a small amount of a fiber supplement kind of as like reassurance, or like while you're slowly increasing it, I don't necessarily think it will be harmful, but I think it's way more important to focus on the food because there are so many more benefits than just the fiber.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, yeah. Thanks for clarifying.
Of course.
All right. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely take a screenshot of it, share it on your story, tag me, tag Nicolette. If you're not already subscribed to the Tips of Tony podcast, definitely hit that subscribe button. If you're feeling really generous and you want to write a review or give me a 5-star rating, be super appreciative of it. More people find the podcast that way, which means our message gets out there to more people, which is why we do this. So please spread the love. All right. Anyways, yeah, you're so welcome, Nikki. Thank you guys for listening. As always, I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.